All right, get ready to dive deep because today we're exploring the history of Santa Claus.
Yeah, Santa Claus.
You might think you know everything about the jolly old elf, but I think you'll be surprised.
I think so too.
We've got some Wikipedia entries, of course,
Of course.
articles from the Coca-Cola website, whychristmas.com, and even a piece from the online magazine Art and Object.
Really a diverse set of sources.
Yeah, and it's amazing what you find when you put it all together.
Yeah, I mean, we're not starting at the North Pole.
Right.
We're going all the way back to the 4th century AD with a real person,
Okay.
a guy named St. Nicholas of Myra.
A 4th century bishop.
Yeah, he was a bishop.
That's a far cry from a red suit and reindeer. What's the connection?
Well, he was known for his generosity,
Okay.
and it's his legacy that kind of gets this whole Santa Claus ball rolling.
So how does a 4th century bishop become Santa Claus?
Well, there's this story, it's probably a legend,
Okay.
about St. Nicholas and 3 dowries.
3 dowries.
Yeah, 3 sisters. Their father was struggling financially.
And the dowry was to get married?
Yeah, and without dowries, they might have been forced into, well, let's just say, undesirable circumstances.
Yay.
So St. Nicholas secretly throws bags of gold coins through their window, helps them out.
He sounds like a good guy.
Yeah, it's likely a legend, but it really cemented his image as a gift giver. And you know that's a pretty important building block for the Santa Claus we know today.
That's true.
Yeah.
So that image of a secret gift giver takes root. Did everyone start calling him Santa Claus right then and there?
No, not quite.
Okay.
St. Nicholas actually became super popular all throughout Europe.
Huh.
A patron saint of all sorts of people, sailors, merchants, children, you know it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And his feast day, celebrated on December 6th, became associated with gift giving.
Makes sense.
And that's where we see these traditions emerge, like Santa Claus in the Netherlands and Belgium.
Right.
He's based directly on St. Nicholas, but
Mm.
he's got his own unique flair.
Sinterklaas? That's the one who arrives by steamboat, right?
Yeah, instead of reindeer in a sleigh, it's a steamboat from Spain.
It seems a little random.
No, it's not random at all. Think about the Netherlands back in the 17th and 18th centuries.
Okay.
They were a major seafaring power
That's right.
with this vast trading network that reached all the way to Spain.
Uh-huh.
The steamboat really reflects that maritime culture.
Interesting.
And it also ties into the tradition of Sinterklaas bringing gifts from afar.
So the mode of transportation is a clue to the cultural context.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah,
These details aren't random. They tell us a story.
they really do.
What about Sinterklaas himself? Does he look anything like our modern Santa?
Visually, he's quite different.
Okay.
He's slimmer, wears these traditional bishop's robes,
Okay.
and get this, he even rides a flying horse.
A flying horse.
Kids leave treats for the horse, hoping Sinterklaas will fill their shoes with gifts on December 5th.
Shoes.
Yeah,
Not stockings.
we're not stockings now.
Interesting.
Decision ground.
All these little variations
Yeah,
make you realize how much cultural influence is baked into these traditions.
you got it.
Speaking of variations, England has its own version with Father Christmas.
Right.
Was he always the jolly gift giver we picture today?
Not exactly. Unlike Sinterklaas, he isn't directly linked to St. Nicholas.
Okay.
He's more of a personification of Christmas cheer itself,
Interesting.
but his image has evolved over time, yeah.
So,
Well, originally he was much taller, had these fur-trimmed robes,
okay.
and he was associated with both rewards and punishments for children.
So kind of like a naughty or nice thing from the get-go.
Yeah, not quite the cuddly Santa we know and love.
So when did that shift to the purely benevolent figure we know today?
I'd say the Victorian era played a big role in softening his image. Think Charles Dickens, A Christmas Carol. That really helped solidify Father Christmas as this benevolent figure associated with generosity and goodwill. But to understand how we get to the modern American Santa Claus, we got to go back across the Atlantic.
Back to the Dutch settlers in New York.
You got it.
So even though the Dutch were a minority in America, their Sinterklaas tradition still had a lasting impact. How did that happen?
It's pretty fascinating. You can actually see the early traces of this influence in Washington Irving's Knickerbocker's History of New York. It mentions Santa Claus.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and even describes him driving a wagon full of toys.
Wow.
This was in the early 1800s, showing how Sinterklaas was already being adapted and Americanized.
So the seeds were planted. But it seems like something big must have happened to solidify that image and really make it stick.
You're right. In 1821, an anonymous poem was published.
Oh,
It was called Old Santa Claus with Much Delight.
old Santa Claus with much delight.
Appeared in a New York newspaper.
Okay.
And here's the kicker. This is the first known depiction of Santa Claus in a reindeer-drawn sleigh.
Hold on. So this was before Clement Clark Moore's "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." The
Exactly.
one that everyone thinks established the modern Santa image.
Right.
Wow.
That's what's so intriguing about this, this image of Santa Claus, the reindeer's sleigh, the whole 9 yards. It was already circulating, evolving even before Moore's poem came along.
So it challenges our assumptions of where these iconic images come from.
It really does.
Okay, so now I'm dying to know about Moore's poem
Yeah.
and how it fits into all this.
Okay.
It seems like that's where we get the definitive picture of Santa Claus, right?
Yeah.
The jolly old elf, the 8 named reindeer, the whole thing.
Absolutely. A visit from St. Nicholas, as it's formally known, really is a game changer
Yeah.
in Santa Claus lore. And it draws on those earlier traditions and images, but adds its own unique spin,
Okay.
solidifying that image in a way that really resonated with the American public.
Yeah. All right, so let's unpack that iconic poem. How did it shape the Santa we know and love? And what about this mystery surrounding its authorship? Was it really Clement Clark Moore? Or is there more to the story?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. We're about to delve into the world of literary debates and historical intrigue. Buckle up. All right, let's dive into Moore's poem, A Visit from St. Nicholas.
Okay.
Published in 1823,
All right.
it really paints this vivid picture of Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, with a sleigh pulled by 8 reindeer,
The 8 reindeer.
each with a name.
Yes.
It just captures that magic and wonder of Christmas Eve.
Absolutely.
But,
Uh-huh.
even with its iconic poem, there's still a bit of mystery surrounding its authorship.
Oh, really? So we're not even sure who wrote "'Twas the Night Before Christmas."
That's right.
That's wild. I always assumed it was Clement Clark Moore.
Right. He's traditionally been credited.
Okay.
But there's this compelling case to be made that it was actually written by Henry Livingston Jr.
Henry Livingston Jr.
Yeah, he was a poet from New York,
Okay.
and his family has long claimed that he was the true author.
Interesting.
There's even some linguistic analysis that supports their claim,
Oh, wow.
pointing to similarities between the poem and Livingston's other works.
So we might have the wrong guy in the history books this whole time.
That's possible.
What a plot twist. But regardless of who penned it,
Right.
the poem's impact is undeniable.
Absolutely.
I mean, it gave us the reindeer names, the image of Santa's physique, the whole Christmas Eve arrival scene. It's like the ultimate Santa Claus blueprint.
It really is. It took all those scattered pieces, St. Nicholas, Sinterklaas, Father Christmas,
Yeah.
and kind of synthesized them
Right.
into this one singular, enduring image that really resonated with the American public.
I see.
And once that image took hold, artists and illustrators really ran with it
Yeah.
and further shaped how we visualize Santa Claus.
So we've got the literary foundation. But now I'm picturing those classic Santa illustrations,
The ones we see on Christmas cards,
Yeah.
in storybooks.
Uh.
Was there one artist in particular that really shaped that visual style?
Absolutely. And for that, we turn to a 19th century cartoonist named Thomas Nast.
Thomas
This
Nast.
guy's work in magazines like Harper's Weekly
Okay.
really had a huge influence on how we see Santa today.
You mentioned a cartoonist, and I immediately think of like caricatures and satire.
Yeah.
But Nast's Santa illustrations are actually pretty heartwarming and iconic.
They are.
Especially, I love the one where he's dressed in a full-blown American flag outfit. It's so patriotic.
That particular illustration was published in 1863,
Okay.
right in the middle of the Civil War.
Wow.
And it really wasn't just about patriotism.
Oh.
It also served as this reminder of the joy and unity that Christmas represented, even in the midst of a divided nation.
Wow, so even Santa Claus was caught up in the politics of the time. It makes you realize how deeply embedded these figures are in our collective consciousness. Exactly. And Nast didn't just dress Santa in the Stars and Stripes.
Yeah.
Through his illustrations, we see this development of the large belly, the white beard, the twinkling eyes,
Yeah.
and of course the iconic red and white suit.
Of course.
He even started depicting Santa at the North Pole, surrounded by elves in his workshop.
Really. He created the whole Santa Claus universe as we know it.
He really did.
It's amazing how one artist can have such a lasting impact on our cultural imagination.
It really is.
Though I have to admit, the whole North Pole thing always seemed a bit random to me.
Yeah.
Why the North Pole?
Well, some believe Nast might have drawn inspiration from the German Belsnickel tradition.
Belsnickel.
Yeah, he was this mischievous gift giver who came from the woods,
Okay.
often wearing furs and carrying a switch.
Okay.
So you can kind of see how that wild, wintry image
Yeah.
could have evolved into the North Pole.
I see. So it's another example of cultural cross-pollination.
Exactly.
The German Belsnickel
Yeah.
meets the Dutch Sinterklaas and the English Father Christmas.
Right.
Boom, you've got Santa Claus at the North Pole.
There you go.
It's fascinating how these folk figures blend together to create something new. Okay, so we've talked about poems, we've talked about illustrations,
Yeah.
but now I have to ask about the elephant in the room, or should I say the polar bear in the room.
Uh-oh.
Coca-Cola and the red suit.
Ah, yes.
Did they really invent it?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the answer is a resounding no.
Okay.
As we've seen, Santa was already sporting red long before Coca-Cola came along.
Okay.
It was part of St. Nicholas's bishop's robes.
Right.
It popped up in Victorian depictions of Father Christmas,
Uh-huh.
and it was a central element in Thomas Nast's iconic illustrations.
Okay.
Coca-Cola didn't invent the red suit, but they certainly capitalized on it.
So how did they turn Santa into a walking advertisement? Was it just a matter of putting a Coke in his hand?
Well, it was a bit more strategic than that.
Right.
In 1931, they launched a massive advertising campaign featuring Santa Claus.
Oh, wow.
They wanted to boost sales during the winter months
Okay.
when soda consumption typically dipped.
Right.
And they knew that Santa was just this beloved figure who could help them achieve that.
Yeah.
So they commissioned an illustrator named Haddon Sundblom to create a series of Santa Claus images specifically for their ads.
I've seen those illustrations. They're the ones that are plastered everywhere during the holidays.
Exactly.
Sunbloom's Santa is extra jolly, super approachable, and yeah, usually holding a Coke.
Exactly, and that's the key. They didn't just slap their logo on an existing Santa image.
Right.
Sunbloom's illustrations took all those classic elements, the red suit, the white beard, the twinkle in his eye,
Yeah.
and just made them even more appealing,
Right.
even more heartwarming. He created a Santa that people wanted to invite into their homes,
Yeah.
a Santa who just happened to enjoy a refreshing Coca-Cola.
It's brilliant marketing, really. They took a cultural icon and seamlessly integrated him into their brand identity.
Yeah.
And it worked, I mean.
It did.
Those Sunblom illustrations are so ubiquitous.
They're everywhere.
They've become synonymous with Santa Claus himself. I wonder if they ever anticipated just how influential those images would become.
It's hard to say, but it's really a testament to the power of visual imagery
Yeah.
and how it can shape our cultural perceptions.
Absolutely.
And what's even more interesting is that Coca-Cola wasn't the only one who saw the marketing potential of Santa Claus.
Oh, really?
Even Pepsi got in on the action in the 40s and 50s, using similar imagery in their ads.
Wow.
It was a marketing goldmine.
Yeah.
But beyond the commercialization,
Yeah.
Santa's image has continued to evolve in other ways, reflecting kind of these broader societal shifts.
Okay, so if not the red suit, what else did Coca-Cola change about Santa? Or should we move on to how his image has evolved over time? Okay, so if not the red suit, what else did Coca-Cola change about Santa? Or should we move on to how his image has evolved over time?
Well, I mean, their campaign certainly reinforced the red suit.
Right.
But you could argue that their biggest impact was on Santa's personality.
Oh, okay.
I mean, Santa's a jollier, more approachable, almost like a kindly grandfather.
Okay.
This image resonated with people, further softening his image,
Makes sense.
moving away from that stricter, more disciplinary figure of earlier centuries.
Interesting how even a figure like Santa Claus, who, embodies joy and generosity, has gone through these shifts in personality.
It is, yeah.
What else has changed about Santa over time?
Well, one of the most fascinating changes is in his workshop.
Oh, okay.
In the early 20th century, he was often depicted as this lone craftsman,
Right.
painstakingly handcrafting each toy in his workshop.
Yeah.
But by mid-century, that image started to shift, reflecting changes in society itself.
Makes sense.
The rise of mass production, the growth of factories, the changing nature of labor, all found their way into Santa's story.
So instead of a cozy workshop with Santa hammering away at a wooden toy, We start to see images of elves working on assembly lines, churning out toys on a massive scale.
Exactly.
It's like Santa went from artisan to factory boss.
Exactly. And that shift really reflects a changing understanding of how things are made and who makes them.
Right.
The lone craftsman was replaced by this more complex system of production,
Uh-huh.
with Santa kind of overseeing this vast network of elf workers.
It's like Santa's a CEO now.
Yeah, and as technology continues to advance,
Right.
so does Santa's operation. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
We went from reindeer-drawn sleighs to images of Santa piloting this high-tech spaceship,
Yeah.
zipping around the world delivering gifts at warp speed.
A far cry from that humble steamboat from Spain.
Right, and it makes
Mhm.
you wonder, what future iterations of Santa might look like. Will he be using drones to deliver packages?
Uh-huh.
Will his workshop be fully automated,
Wow.
run by AI?
It's almost a little unsettling to think about.
It is a natural progression, though, isn't it?
I guess so.
The Santa Claus story, like any enduring myth or folktale, adapts to reflect the anxieties and aspirations of the time.
Right. He's a mirror to our own evolving relationship with technology, labor, even globalization.
Exactly, but despite all these changes,
Yeah.
there's something about Santa that remains constant, something that continues to resonate with people across cultures and generations.
I think it's that core message of generosity and goodwill.
Yeah.
He reminds us that even in a world that can often feel cynical and materialistic,
Yeah.
there's still room for kindness, for magic, for believing in something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly, and that's what makes the Santa Claus story so powerful. It's a reminder that even as the world around us changes, certain human values, they endure. That desire to give, to care for others, to create moments of joy and wonder,
Yeah,
those impulses are timeless.
I agree.
And Santa Claus, in all his evolving forms, embodies that enduring spirit.
Yeah, he really does.
He's a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's always this glimmer of light,
Yeah.
a reason to believe in the possibility of something better.
After this deep dive, I'm left with a sense of awe, really.
Really?
Santa Claus is more than just a holiday figure.
Yeah.
He's this cultural chameleon
Right.
reflecting our anxieties, our
Yeah.
aspirations,
Yeah.
our evolving relationship with the world around us.
And that's the beauty of these deep dives, isn't it?
Yeah, it
We
is.
uncover these unexpected connections, these hidden layers of meaning that we might otherwise miss.
Absolutely.
We realize that even the most familiar things can hold these surprising depths, prompting us to look at the world with fresh eyes.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. But before we go, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. What does the figure of Santa Claus mean to you, regardless of whether you believe in him literally? What aspects of his story resonate with you most deeply? Until next time, happy holidays and keep on diving.